What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Chaz, and you're tuned in to Oxen Brand Music. There's a difference between being in church and
Hmm.
just being a part of church.
You would have eventually numbed yourself to where you might not have felt it so
No,
much.
no,
And then all of a sudden you get caught up. And that's when you go, oh, snap.
Leadership is literally a hands-on thing. It's not just I am the leader.
Whew.
You got to get down there. You got to talk.
Help me welcome Chaz in the building. Let's go.
Yes, sir. What's going on? What's going on?
Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in, bro. Thank you so much for being here on the show, man.
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's good. Actually, it's really, really good to see all the support you got here in the chat. I love seeing. I love it when we have people on here, and they come in and they're rolling in deep, showing that support right away. Like I love that. I love that.
Yes, sir.
That lets me know that you're really intentional with your relationships because people not just coming in here just to come in here unless they actually like, no, I'm down with this dude. So that says something about you, man, for sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, obviously half the chat already knows who you are, but for the other half who don't, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Uh, Chaz is a Christian hip hop artist from Charlotte, North Carolina. Uh, Making music. My family's actually from Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
But I was born in Charlotte. I'm the only kid that was born in Charlotte. My other two siblings were born in Michigan, so I get a lot of flack for that. But
You
making
not
Christian
one
hip
of
hop
us.
music, yeah, right. You're not one of us. Um, and I'm just sitting here. Glory to God, I'm here. I'm alive. I've been a little bit under the weather this weekend, but we
Yeah.
here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is it like sinus stuff, like stuff
Yeah.
switching over?
Hmm.
Yeah. My youngest, I was on my way home, and my wife was like, "Yeah, he's kind of complaining about his eyes. I think it's kind of migraine, but I don't know, it might be allergy." And I'm like, you know what? It could be anything at this point. So
Facts.
that's just the time of year that we in.
I'm gaining new allergies as I get older. I'm learning.
Bro,
I didn't even know I had, but okay.
yo, listen, let's talk about that because there's some young bucks in here. Not just my producer, but there's some young bucks that they don't really know. And the thing is, okay, and the frustrating part too, bro, is it's one of those like everything is good, and then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you're like, "What's this?" Right?
Something
Like,
ain't right.
bro, like I just got a biopsy done on my left leg.
Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Um, I got a biopsy done on my left leg, and it was one of those like I don't know, it was just weird little bumps and swelling and stuff like that. It's just this whole weird thing. And anyway, so I go in and I'm like, they're like, yeah, so have you had this in the past? I was like, listen, apparently I just keep waking up and stuff keeps happening. So no, I don't know. Like, can you tell me what this thing is? So it's the story of our life, right?
Yeah, I'm learning.
So
Definitely learning.
that's how that's how I feel after every morning after the gym. um, but hey, bro. So okay, let's go ahead since we know we getting older. We getting older, and there's some things that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the younger, right? Let's talk about the younger Chaz. Give us an origin story, bro. Other than the fact that you're from Charlotte, just kind of tell us a little bit about your growing up, right? Your home life, the BC days, if there was a BC day, all that stuff, man. Go ahead and tell us a little about it, man.
I also pretty much when I was younger, pretty much grew up in church my entire life since I was a little kid. So it was nothing different there. But I really didn't start taking, there's a difference between being in church and
Mm-hmm.
just being a part of church. So as a
Mm.
as a, as a young
Tell.
child, I was just there.
Okay, Go ahead. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yes, go
I,
ahead.
I, I was present. I was there with my parents and my whole family. My brother and my sister, we were in church, and I really didn't start taking more like Christianity like
Mm-hmm.
serious and for myself until I got to like high school.
Mm.
But pretty much youngest child, youngest dealing with youngest child stuff in the house, and
Yeah.
the baby, so getting the baby stereotypes thrown on me and picked on by my older brother and sister, but typical
Yeah.
childhood stuff.
Yeah. So okay, and we could take this slow too, because we don't mind having a part two. We don't mind running back. Okay,
That's
another interview. So
we're here.
let's take this slow. So it's important that I really want to hit on the whole just being present, because like that might have been your story as a younger person, but that's somebody's story at many different points of their life,
Hmm.
right? Sometimes it's the same person back and forth because each season is a little bit different. So I want to talk about that, especially because last week with our guest Jay Cash, we talked about church and being a part of it and everything else. And so let's tell me at the time that you could think of, right? Take yourself back to
Hmm.
that younger Chazz. When did you notice that I'm just being present? This isn't something that you're necessarily really involved with. You're just kind of here.
I noticed that it probably around
Okay.
middle school times, because then as you get introduced and you go to school and you see some of your other friends and how they act and what they talk about and what they say and stuff like that, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
because I used to tell them, Sunday waking up, going to church, it's an every week thing. Going to Bible study, it was an every week thing. And then I
Yeah.
really started realizing, I'm like, I'm really just like going through the motions. Like I'm just
Mm.
going to the services, but I'm like, I'm not really like,
As a middle schooler.
yeah.
Okay.
As I started to get old, because you start to, how they say in college you find yourself.
Yeah.
I didn't really go to a typical college. I went to college online. So
Oh.
my
Okay.
time of
Okay.
getting to know myself was high school.
Mm.
So that's when I really got to understand and really was like, okay, am I really gonna skip class, or am I gonna go to class with my friends? Am I really gonna smoke weed, or am I gonna not? Like, that's when I
Mm.
started to notice. So I didn't get to have my full college experience. So like
Yeah.
by the time I was in high school, that's why I started to take it more seriously, because I'm like, okay, you really can get caught up out here by doing the wrong things or the right things. So I'm like, I really need to hone in on, church, and really make sure I'm getting something from there.
Wow. Okay. So we kind of jumped ahead as far as from young realizing that you're just kind of here, and then having to, I guess,
Hmm.
kind of like get right back into it, right as the college. So then, um, when you were younger and you noticed it, was there any kind of resentment about being there so much? Was there kind of like what was that aha moment? Like why after that moment, after that aha moment, if you could take me through, how did you process? Were you like just annoyed that you were there? Were you upset about Christians? Like I don't know, just talk me through that.
I'll leave it with something that my dad used to tell me. He said, "Yeah, my kids are on drugs. I'm gonna drag them to church. I'm gonna drag them to Bible study. I'm gonna drag them anytime the church is open." So at that point,
Yeah.
eventually during middle school, you're like, "Oh, we gotta get up again. We gotta get up early in the morning. Like we
Mm.
gotta," and you feel like almost like, "Am I the only person at my school going through this? Like, do I always have to get up and go, get up and go?"
Mm.
So after a while, it started to become like, oh man, like kind of tired of going through the motion. I got to get up on Bible study after school. I'm
Mhm.
already tired from school. Now I
Yeah.
still got to go to Bible study.
Dang.
And after a while, you became like, okay, this is getting, redundant.
Mhm.
I'm tired of going. But as you get to new places in your life, you started to really appreciate it as you get older. So I
Yeah.
think that's what started happening for me.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that's a good thought because it's one of those you don't really know if anybody else is going through the same thing, right? And so
Hmm.
you're like, okay, yeah, this is normal for me, but I don't hear nobody else complaining about it. But like, I'm also not going to ask everybody else about it.
Yeah, facts.
At the same time too. So,
Facts.
uh, are you tired after church? Church? What are you
Are
talking
you
about, homie?
tired?
like,
You gotta go to church too?
yeah, yeah. Okay, so the drug me to church, right? Drug me to church.
Mhm,
Um, that's a story that can kind of take multiple different twists and turns. So for you, for your story specifically, um, though you started appreciating as you were older, um, you know how how did you feel slash what were you thinking about when you realized I ain't got a choice, I have to be here, I'm also really not into it, but I can't have a bad attitude because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get in trouble if I do,
facts.
right? So just talk me through like what was that impact, not now, right, not in hindsight because now we can obviously think of it a little bit, but like in the middle of it, um again, back to the question of like, was there any kind of resentment towards the church, towards your dad? Was it kind of like, man, I really don't want to be here. I'm tired of being here. Like, I don't know, man. Like, just kind of talk me through that.
Yeah, initially it was,
Yeah.
but then, as you in different churches, they'll have like a whole, youth organization, a youth department in
Yep.
there. So
Yep.
as you started to get more into those, and then like they would have like vacation Bible school, and they would have all these different stuff. You started to become like, dang,
Yeah.
it's actually pretty cool. Like we can do this, we can talk about this, we can do that. So then it started
Mm.
the appreciation of everything. Because sometimes as a kid when you're sitting there and the pastor's preaching or something like that,
Yep.
I'm not fully grabbing everything. I don't fully understand,
Right.
what's
Yeah.
going on. I don't know what's talking, but when
Yeah.
you're in those vacation Bible schools and you're in a, different environment, they break it down for you and you're able to
Yes.
understand, oh, okay, that's what pastor meant. That's what this meant. That's what that meant. So I
Yeah.
think that's when the appreciation really started to come being in those smaller groups with other kids my age.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I mean, and it is tough because like, oh, so our church, same thing. All the kids, they all sit in, the during worship, and then after announcements and all that, then because right now it's a church plant, right? It's a church plant,
Mhm.
so don't have like a lot of youth and all that, but there are a lot of younger ones. So everybody who's 10 and under goes off to their small little classrooms. But then older, or if they wanted to stay, they could just stay too. And so it is that thought of like, okay, well, I'm gonna have you come to church because for my story is I wasn't raised Christian, right? Like that, like
Mhm.
God was not a conversation of any sort. Until after my 8th grade graduation, when I got invited to a party that eventually invited me to church and kind of went on from there. Um, so I don't really have like I am now trying to raise my kids in a Christian home that of which I was never raised in. So
Yeah.
therefore I have no kind of gauge on
Yeah.
what to do, what not to do. And I mean, even like with Bible study type stuff, like, it's like, okay, should I make sure like every morning before, well, because we homeschool too, but my mother-in-law does all the homeschooling. But so it's like before I drop them off, like, should I do Bible studies, or after
Yeah.
church should I be like, okay, let's unpack this? Like,
Well, let's unpack it.
it's tricky. It's like kind of like coaching your own kids too. Like that's a tricky thing. Like you can do it, but you also want to be really cautious about the relationship where they're able
Mhm.
to have their parent be their parent and not have to be their
Mhm.
everything, and all of that. So I'm rambling on to say that, for I'm taking my mind as to where your dad is, where I want my kids to be a part of the
Mhm.
church for sure. In fact, I even have my son starting to learn how to run the camera, for not for live streams, but we record it and then post it up later. So it's like more of like I'm gonna start implementing I'm gonna do what church did for me. I went from not really like not really doing any of that kind of stuff in terms of like rather it was whatchamacallit, um like productions. There we go. Like
Mhm.
productions, obviously choir and everything else. So I had never done any of those things at all. And then because of church, I started doing all of it, experienced a lot of different things, and then therefore a lot of what I know now and what I do now is because of the church. So for my kids, I'm like, well, I want them to be a part of it, and
Mhm.
I'm hoping that instead of like, oh man, dad's making us come, it's also like, oh, but like I have my own piece of the
Mhm.
church, right? I get to be a part of it. For you, like you talked about the small groups, being able to help unpack things. Were you like plugged into the church? Was there like certain jobs or certain things like usher or whatever like that you got put into?
Okay. Yeah. In majority of the churches that I've been in, I've always worked the sound. I've always been in the sound department, working
Mm,
the board, setting up for church. Because a lot of times we were in buildings that we didn't own, so we had to like set up and break down every week.
yeah.
So I was always a part of the sound, working the computers to work the screens, and always in the sound department. I always found myself in the sound department every single church.
Yeah. Now, is it cuz like you were just that good at it, or like you just like, hey, I can tell that there's a lack here, so I'm going to be here?
It was in the first church, it was a lack. so it
Mm.
needed to be in there. And my dad is actually an engineer, so he knew
Ah,
how to
there
work
it
the
is.
board. So he would show me like, all right, Chaz, this is how
Gotcha.
you do it. This is how you work the mics. This is how you check the levels. This is how you. So I would just sit there and I would learn. I would learn, and
Yeah.
then it came to a point where I could do it by myself. And then it became a point when we went to another church. It was just I already had those skills. So then
Mm.
it became, well, you don't want to be plugged into your church, feel like you have a part of it and
Yeah.
everything. Think about joining the department. So I always gravitated towards the sound department. It was something I was already good at. So then I would just go right into it and flow right into the sound department.
Dope. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's dope. And shout out to your dad and anybody who was like, "Hey, I'm just going to teach you what I know." And
Hmm.
then now you have a tool and you get to be an asset wherever you go, by using that tool. So, was your was your dad like into music already? Is that how he already knew how to do how did he already know how to do that stuff?
Yeah. So, also did work the camera too. So I did
Okay.
tape the services for a good bit too.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad in high school, he was an engineer. And my family, we always grew up around music. So even when I was a little kid, on those cleaning Saturdays, there's music playing all through the day, clean. So he's always been around music. But he
Yeah.
was an engineer in high school, so he already had those skills, and he literally went to a class and everything, and learned how to work the board and mix and do all this stuff. So
Yeah.
I guess when I was younger, I mean, I just noticed he was always around it, so I kind of gravitated towards, how like your dad is doing something, so it's like, "Hey, dad, what you doing?" Like,
Yeah.
you know. So I was always around it because he was always around it. So that's how that started.
That's dope. That's dope, man. So, being raised in the church, do you feel like do you are there any aspects of your walk with Christ that you realized that you had to make it your own? Because you talked about church and you talked about
Mhm.
like knowing that I'm just kind of doing the motions or whatever. But talk to me, when did you get to that point, and how did you get to that point where you're realizing like, okay, this is cool that I'm doing stuff for the church and all that, but Jesus is more than just this soundboard, or this camera,
Mhm.
and he's becoming more real to me. So kind of talk us through that transition, man.
Yeah, so there was a point in high school where my parents' faith had to become my own.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And I know I probably escaped a lot of stuff just from my grandmother and my parents' prayers over
yeah.
me. And I can still feel their prayers every day.
Mm.
But there was a time in high school where it was just like, okay, Chaz, like you really have a moment where it's like you're either going to be here or you're going to be there. Like
Mm.
there's no more walking this middle line. So I think at that point, and I don't know if it was like one particular thing that happened that made me like, okay, I really need to get more serious with my walk. I think it was just more so my surroundings around high school, the friends I was with, the things that they were into. And I was just like, I've always been a person that I'm always going to be myself, no
Mm-hmm.
matter who I'm around or what I'm around.
Mm.
So if I'm not doing that, if I'm not smoking, I'm not doing that, I'm not drinking, I'm not doing that. Like it's just, I always had that strong constitution about myself that I'm not going to do it if it's not, I don't really go into like peer pressure. So I think that's
Gotcha.
when I really started to focus and I'm like, okay, Chaz, you really need to tighten up and really make sure you're on your stuff.
That's cool. That's cool. I like that, man. Just understanding your identity is really what we're talking about, because
Hmm.
the only way you can stand by any of your convictions is if you have an identity. Like
Hmm.
if you truly know who you are, and that's where, I mean, honestly, that's where the peer pressure comes in, right? Like
Yeah.
the only reason why it's a pressure from a peer is not because they are so this and so that and so many of them or whatever. It's literally just more so the fact that um, it's you don't really have an identity in yourself enough,
Hmm.
so you are like the tides going in and out, right? You're like the wave, you're like the wind, you're just
Hmm.
kind of blowing in the breeze, right? One way or the other. And so for you, man, talk about that then, because in order to not fall into peer pressure, you have to have some kind of identity. Can you kind of think back to like where you were getting this identity from? Like where you like were like, no, I know exactly who I am and I'm good with it.
I think for both, it was just my parents and
Yeah,
instilling that in me. Like you are this, you are a man of God, you are
that's
this,
good.
like just declaring over me and over my
Yeah.
siblings as well. So automatically, like, from especially from high school, I can distinctly remember that it was always a, "Okay, Chaz, like, you gotta come on now,"
Mm-hmm.
you know? Well, because there's a big jump from my sister was telling me 'cause, she's a few years older, so we
Mm-hmm.
got to experience, like, 1 year in middle school and then, like, 2 years in high school. So
Yeah.
she was like, "Alright, Chaz, like, there's a middle school and high school is totally different. It's gonna be a lot more that you're gonna see that you weren't used to. Because in my elementary school, I was in one of those, like, I don't want not prestigious, but it was just like you're guarded from a lot of stuff that you might see at a normal elementary school. So when I got to
Mm-hmm.
middle school, I was more open to, oh wow, like this is craziness going on around here. And then in high school,
Yeah.
it was the same way, and it just was blown to a different proportion.
Yeah.
So by the time I got there, and I was just like, okay, you really need to figure it out, because like my sister was always like there to kind of like show me,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Chaz, this is what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to be. And I'm like, okay, okay. But it's different from hearing it and then actually experiencing it when you see it. Like, so I think from that time, from my sister and my brother and my siblings, because, I looked up to them as well,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that they were going through, because they went through everything first. So how did they handle it when they went up there? How did they
That's
handle it when
good.
they did this? So then I would see them and see how their reaction to stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, they can do it. I can do it.
Yeah. No, that's good. So you had somebody to look to towards,
Mhm.
right? And so, I think that's really dope because the sad the sad part is that there aren't a lot of people who have that kind of upbringing where first off, they feel support, like true support from their
Mhm.
family, that somebody is calling them to a higher standards and a higher expectation. I mean, I coach gymnastics, and so I've been doing it for about 20 years, and so it's one of those. Certain people, especially in sports, certain people who are being held to a certain standard, they meet those standards, right? They
Mhm.
learn how to grow. That it's not always flower and sunshines, and everything else.
Yeah.
But they understand that this grit, this grind, is going to be for something, right? Um, and so, but it's more it's easier to go through that when the person who is challenging you also loves you enough to pick
Mhm.
you up and to be like, all right, listen, you're wrong, but I'm gonna help you through this, right?
Mhm.
So shout out to your family to to be that, and then just you being in a lineup where you are able to see those who came before you, how they did it, right? And how they responded to certain things like you talked about. So like for me, so I'm one of four. My oldest sister
Mhm.
is about 8 or 9 years older than me, and then I'm 10 years older than my younger brother and sister, right? So there's a huge gap. So
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, shout out to a new follower. So I'm like right up in the, like I'm old enough and far enough away from my younger siblings to be the oldest, right? But I'm in the middle enough to go, I've learned a lot of what not to do from my older
Yeah.
sister, right? So to be able to have that, be able to look up at somebody and all that, that's great. I think what's cool though is that you were able to start separating yourself because you started to notice, hey, there's a lot going on here. Like
Yeah.
we kind of all was like joking around a little bit and kind of doing this, that, and the other. And like at some point, y'all made it real.
Yeah.
It's kind of like play fighting, right? Like slap
Yeah.
boxing. Like, oh, we just slap
And
by,
you get hit for real.
and then all of a sudden
All that
there's a real
stops.
one. Then you're like, whoa, 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 what how do we get here? What happened? you know? Uh, talk about that transition because I feel like there's plenty of people who they maybe even in their friendship and it goes in all different ages. Like I said, there's just
Mhm.
seasons kind of repeat sometimes for people, where you're in this space, even sometimes with relationships where you're not really doing what God's asked you to do or be a part of whatever, but at the same time you're like, yeah, but I'm not really wilding out. But then everybody
Mhm.
goes through that situation where all of a sudden now the people that are around them, they're starting to push those boundaries even further, right? They're starting to, nah, it's okay, like especially like physical stuff, right? For relationships,
Mhm.
nah, we can do a little bit of this. It's,
Mhm.
oh, we're gonna do a little bit more of this, and so talk about what it was for you that allowed yourself to not only separate yourself, but like what gave you the strength to go, even if I lose my friends, like that's okay because I'm still gonna do it. And I know it kind of falls in line, but I want to know like a practical way where somebody could be struggling right now with this, where they're like, yeah, I can tell these relationships in my life I need to be done with them, but I don't know. I just know I don't want to go that far.
Yeah. So the practical steps in general. I mean, I don't know if I can give like a step by step process, but I
Yeah.
knew for me that it was always my dad and my mom who always just instilled in me and made sure they were just like, you know what, for Christ we live, for Christ we die. Like that was always
Mm. Wow.
a thing that
That's
a
good.
phrase that we said and that we live by. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I for me it was just if I did something wrong, there's a difference between knowing like, okay, I know this is right, I know this is wrong, and then doing something wrong when you don't know right from wrong. And
Ooh.
I always
Yeah.
knew right from wrong.
Wow.
So that was always I knew it. And if I did wrong, it was always something in me. I would say indignation. God telling me, all right, Chaz,
Mm.
come on now. Like that wasn't. And I don't like that feeling that I
Mm.
get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, whenever I felt that, or ever I felt that pressure or stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, there's a moment right here where we can go left or we can go right.
Yep.
And it's like I can feel that indignation telling me, okay, you need to go right. Like
Mm.
So at that point, I wouldn't say a practical step, but it's a feeling for me. Like it was like okay now, like pushing me towards a certain way.
Yeah.
And honestly, yeah, it was God telling me, shielding
Yep.
me from something. I think a lot of times what people they think that God is hindering them from something, but He's actually protecting you from something.
That
So I
part.
think I had to realize that at a young age, and you're thinking like, well, I just want to have fun, and you're holding me back and stuff like that. No, he might be protecting you. That party that you want to go to might be the one that gets shot up, and you don't know, and he might be protecting you from going there, and you think he's hindering you from your fun.
Woo! Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just like Oda-san said, talk that talk. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, bro, I couldn't say it any better. Like sometimes those no's, right, are for our safety, our protection, our boundaries. And what you were talking about, the conviction of the Holy Spirit, right, is
Hmm.
essentially what it is, right? In hindsight, you probably know that a little bit more now, right, than at the moment too, right? But I now here's the thing though, and here's what I want to, hats off to you about. Everybody could feel that, and I really believe that
Hmm.
everybody does feel that at some point, right? Like even even though kids can show like, oh yeah, we naturally have some sinful habits, and we can see it even as young, as a 4-year old or 3-year old being defiant, right? All that kind of stuff. And they also really know when it's not right that people are crying around them or hurting people
Yeah.
or whatever, right? So I feel like we all have that. The only difference though is rather it's environment, rather it's a lot of different things going into it. We have to be sensitive enough to receive from that, right? Like
Hmm.
you had to be aware enough with it first and foremost to be sensitive enough to be able to hear it, right? To feel that. And
Hmm.
you didn't numb yourself by continually being against the grain, right? Where the conviction, right? Like if you would have felt that and then gone with like, ah, no, it's okay, and just kept doing it, kept doing it, you would have eventually numbed yourself to where you might not have felt it so much,
Man, I
and
hear
then
him.
all of a sudden you
Hmm.
get caught up, and that's when you go, oh snap, how'd I get here? You know?
Hmm.
Yeah, man. No, that's good. Conviction. I want to read this one. I want to read this one. Conviction is real. Holy Spirit is there to guide us. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Amen. Yeah, no,
Hmm.
for sure. Okay, so sensitive to the Holy Spirit, you understand your identity, right? You're growing up with some great support. Sounds like there's just a lot going on, man. Like it's a lot of
Yeah.
good is going on in your life. Um, is there any point? Talk me through, man. What's after that? Like, is there any point where all of a sudden your faith is getting challenged, right? Because college kind of does that to a lot of different people. Just talk to me. What's the next steps after that for you, man?
At a certain point after I graduated high school and I was doing college online, I was between, work, college, and making music. So at a certain point, it just became like, oh my God, like everything is going on at once. It feels like everything is like meshing together. It's just
Mm.
like you just go in this continuous cycle going over and over. And at
Yeah.
that point, I think because I wasn't around my friends as much because
Mm.
they actually went to standard traditional colleges and I was
Mhm.
online and at home. I think like not being around them as much, I started to like lose my friendships as much, and I started to like my faith didn't really stick as much because I'm more of a homebody and I'm not really going out to
Mm.
hang with my friends or anything. So I think like a lot of times I found myself that sometimes you really got to deconstruct like your faith to build it back up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I felt like, dang, I'm just failing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like everything is just going wrong and I can't. But some deconstruction is actually a good thing because you might find the thing that was wrong
Mhm.
so that you can reconstruct back to where you were. So I think
Mm.
at those
Yeah.
points when I was losing my faith and I'm just like, again, going back to middle school, it was just, I'm just going to church, going through the motions. I'm just here working the sound. I'm doing the job. I'm doing it. And then it's just like something will snap back where it's like, you kind of like lose that fire that you once had
Yep.
and you have to just find ways. And one thing my parents always told me is do your work unto the Lord, not unto man.
Amen.
So no matter what job I was working at or whatever, I always tried to keep that in my mind. So
Yeah.
then when I started to lose my faith started to go down, it would always be something that would kind of like wake me back up where it's like, okay, I know your fire went out, but I'm gonna reignite you right now.
Yeah.
So and for me, it can be a small sign. Like the other day, this is actually crazy that you brought this up. The other day, I was just thinking about like my music in general, and I was just like, man, it's good, but it's not going like I thought it would. It's not doing
Yeah.
this, not doing this. So I got into the car with my girlfriend. We're going to the gas station, and you know those water bottles where it has like the times, and it shows you like it's like a phrase next to it. Like it'll be like 9 a.m. It'll be like you're doing good. 10 a.m.
Oh yeah.
Da da
Yeah. Yeah.
da da. Yeah, yeah. So she has one of those water bottles, and I get into the car and I get into passenger seat and I just pick it up, and her
Yeah.
water level was right at the second to last, and it said "Don't give up."
Wow.
And I just when I looked at it, like it just reignited me. Like, okay, okay, God, I hear you. And I
Mm.
never told her this, so she probably like, oh, you never told. But it was just like a little personal thing for me. We're
Yeah.
just like,
Wow.
okay, all right, I got it.
Nah. That's good, bro. So I going back to you were in a spot where everything wasn't going right and the relationships that you were used to having around you was going away. Now, those relationships, are those the same ones where you were separating yourself because of they were doing things that you weren't wanting to be a part of?
Well, it was multiple reasons. One, we were
Okay.
leaving a church and going to find another church.
Yeah.
So there becomes the whole traditional, oh well, you're not a part of this church anymore. We can't communicate with you as much and can't and I never understood that portion of it, but
Yeah.
apparently, that goes on with that. And
Yeah.
then I was actually dating someone at that church. So
Okay.
then that became like it became a little bit more harder to see each other, harder to do that. So it was just a lot of stuff going on and then
Gotcha.
a lot of different friends, you know what I'm saying? Like I was actually talking to one of my friends from high school today and I haven't talked to him in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Where it's just like nice to reconnect because it's just like I don't know if anyone has been going to school online, but like when you're like that, like you really have to be like really disciplined,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Right.
like extremely disciplined. And when you're doing that, there's like no time for like hanging out really because you really got to be on it to log in and get your stuff done. But I think that's when I started to like
Yeah.
really hit that road because it was just like, how they say like all work, no fun. Like
Yep.
that's what it felt like for a minute. And my mom literally had to tell me, she was like, Chaz, like you're working so much, like you need to do something to make yourself happy. Whether you just
That's
go
it. That's right.
somewhere or buy something or do something. So I at
Yeah.
that point I just end up I think I bought myself like a PS4 Pro and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get back into video games. Like I
Mm.
just needed something to
Yeah. Yep.
kind of kick me back up. And it actually did work.
No, that's good. Yeah, and I mean, gosh, it sounds like so simple and kind of almost silly in a way, but
Yeah.
like that is 100% true. Like that's with anything. That's even with work, right? Any kind of creative process, like anything. Like if you if you don't have something that is outside of everything else to recharge, yeah, you're gonna end up burning out pretty quickly.
Mhm.
You're gonna end up not being able to um, uh gosh, I don't want to use like new age-ish kind of talk about it, but like kind of like recenter yourself, right? Like where you're where you're able to almost unplug and not let whatever it was be a part of your identity, right? Rather it's
Mhm.
relationships or sports, whatever, right? That's super huge to be able to do that. And that I thought that was cool. Live pie. Oh, okay, so that must be your girl. She said uh you told me now. I love how simple could be an impact. Yeah. Yeah, you have to have a healthy balance for sure. It's um it, and it's okay, so the anytime we talk about balance, balance is a tricky word because
Yeah.
sometimes we think of balance as like a literal balancing act, right? Where you're like literally
Mhm.
trying to like hold things up level, right? Balance
Mhm.
doesn't always mean that. Balance sometimes means I'm going to give a lot more a focus to this, on this day or this week or whatever the case is, than I am this other thing, right? And so that's
Mhm.
that's what I feel like that would be. So, um, so at what point, at what point with all of this of knowing your identity, having great foundation, great support, realizing you don't really want to be a part of what everybody else is going on. However, as stuff was happening, you kind of felt like things were falling apart, with relationships and everything, and so you kind of felt lonely, I guess, or alone,
Mhm.
so to speak. And then you're reading your girl's water bottle and you're like, okay, don't give up. So I'm feeling this like, okay, I got it. Where does music fall in line with this for you? Because you are an artist, and so I haven't really we haven't got to that part just yet.
Yeah, music is well, right now I'm a full-time artist currently. So
Nice.
music is an everyday thing right now. So I think, sometimes like you'll make a song and you'll just be like, "Man, this is hard. I like this."
Yeah.
Then the next day you come and you're like, "This is horrible. I don't know why I wrote this. I don't know why I recorded this," and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
for me, I have to find like I've listened to this song
Yep.
100 times.
Right. Right.
No one
Yep.
else has heard this. And I think that's the part where I have to keep reminding myself, this may be redundant to me, but this is
Yes.
fresh to somebody else.
Mm, that's good.
So I think that it falls in line because I'm constantly either writing something or recording something. So it's either writing or record, writing or record. So music is right now, it's a pretty much every week thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And how long have you been pushing full time?
About 2 years.
Okay. All right. And so within those 2 years, what expectation did you have going into trying to be for full time artist, and from that, what did you learn about that expectation?
Well, expectation I had was I don't think I had an expectation starting out. I was just like, okay, let's try this
Mm-hmm.
because I had a job and then the pandemic happened,
Yeah.
and the job that I had was one of those jobs where we were like installing TVs and speakers and all that stuff. So you had to go in people's houses. So you have a
Uh
pandemic, you can't go in people's houses and
yeah.
and
Yeah.
do that. So then it just became okay. Well, let me get more serious in music. Let me try to get this going and get this off the ground more because I was
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it while I was still having a job as well. But
Mm.
it just became more of like a okay, let me really lock in. So I wouldn't say an expectation. It was just more so let me lock in. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing I can say that I have learned
Yeah.
from going through it um, is harder. I thought was going to be easier
Yeah.
because I'm like you're going to have more free time to do it, but it actually is a little bit harder. And I still don't know the like pinpoint moment like why it's a little bit harder because I think it's like the pressure of like okay, you have less to do
Yeah.
now. Let's be creative.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm busy, I'm actually more creative when I'm busy.
Because
'Cause
your
I'm
brain's
thinking,
already going.
"Da-da-da-da," my brain is going.
Yeah.
So then I'm thinking, okay, dang, okay, that's a nice line here. Oh, dang, I saw that word. Oh, let me put that together. But
Yep.
when you're free, it's kind of harder.
Mm.
I've noticed a little bit, but I like to work in the morning because the
Yeah.
morning is when I'm fresh. But even still, it's a little more difficult, but it's fun though. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's good to learn yourself. Yeah, I think that's a interesting perspective. Sometimes, and the pandemic really taught a lot of people that you really don't like yourself, or you really don't like the
Yeah.
people around you, because you had nothing else to do except for know who you are, right?
Facts. Yeah, facts.
And but as far as the full time thing, being busy, there's a lot of different things I'm involved with, and so I feel that where you're you're able to stay creative because you're constantly having to do some kind of creative thing, right? Even if the
Hmm.
creativity is organizing, that the house or something like that, like
Hmm.
at least something is happening. And so that's how I would feel the same way with in regards of by being busy, you were able to be creative in other aspects. However, then also on the flip side is by being busy and trying to do a little bit of everything, you don't really often get much done because you're trying to get
Yeah.
everything done all at the exact same time,
Yeah.
right? How was that with music? Even though you made that shift and you're starting to find a rhythm, what do you feel like is still one of your challenges as a full time artist?
One of one of the challenges I find is just being consistent, honestly.
Yeah,
Like a lot of times I will like drop a project and then I'll be going for like 6 months or 7 months and
just drop
then
off
I
the.
come back out.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then I'll just like drop off from the face of the earth and then come
yeah,
back
yeah.
out. I'm like, oh, I got a new project, guys, or a new song, and everybody's like, yeah, where you been at? But I think
Right.
just being consistent. Like
Yep.
I had a song come out a few weeks ago, and then now I have a song coming out Friday. So I'm like working on like
Got you.
being consistent, whether I can drop a song a month or whether I can like just finding ways to continuously be outside. Pretty
Yeah.
much. That's the plan right now, for sure. Cause that's 6, 7 months. I can't be doing that no more. That's not gonna fly.
Nah, not if you try to be full time.
Yeah, it's not gonna fly.
Nah, yeah. Well, since we're talking about music, I want to go ahead and get into the Oxen Brand Spotlight portion where we get a chance to hear from the artists themselves about a particular track called I Got You. Oh,
I
no, I
got it.
got it. Um, and you just talk us through the process of creating it, right? With the lyrics, the heart behind it, what your hope that people would take away from this track. Just kind of tell us a little bit about it, man.
So the track is pretty much it's a fun trappish kind of track. It was one it's different because on the project I had it was a project that I did called Business as Usual, and it was
Yeah.
a very uh jazzy hip hop, soulful
Hmm.
hip hop, and that is the only song that has like a trappish kind of beat in the whole project. So
Okay.
it just kind of stood out to me
Yeah.
when I heard the beat, and I was like, man, I really like this. And so like that, I'm like, I do need like a little pick me up rhythm song,
Yeah.
and it's really fun, and also trying to get the message out there about Jesus Christ too. So
Yeah.
we got to have a balance, like we were saying.
Yep. Yep. Nah, man. Yeah, understood. Okay, cool. Well, we're gonna go ahead and actually run the video. We're gonna get a chance to listen to it here live. So, for those of you guys who may or may not have heard this track, it's called Chazz, or is by Chazz. It's called "I Got It." Let's run it. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it. Bro, super catchy. Obviously, right, right.
Hmm.
Super, super catchy. So, um, what I like about the track is man, okay, you tell me as an artist, are you like, yo, I want to be like super deep in my lyrics and I want people to like it be so intricate that they gotta like break out the hieroglyphics to be able to learn what it is that I'm talking about, like what kind of when as far as a writer, what kind of writer do you feel like you are?
I think for me, I mainly go with the beat. So when I hear a beat,
Got
I'm
you.
like, okay, like this is one of those beats where I'm like, okay, you really gotta have the bars on this one. I may hear a
Mm,
beat, I'm like, okay, you gotta get deep on this one. I think
mm,
for that one in particular, I knew I just wanted to have fun,
yeah.
and I wanted to keep it simple, and I wanted to have something that'll stick in people's heads and have a little catchy hook they'll
Yep.
remember and continue to recite. So it just depends for me. I either have a song that's already like I have an idea, I have a title,
Yeah.
then I hear the beat and I might be like, okay, well this fits that. Okay, now I know I have to go deeper in this, or I have a song title where I'm like, oh, I could just have fun with this one. But mainly, I'll just go from the beat though.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're not forcing. You're just gonna go for the feel first.
Hmm.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So, with the video, who shot the video for you?
Oh, it's actually a family friend. He has his
Okay,
own brand, Luwaptic Media, on Instagram, and he shoots music videos. And he did another one of my music videos too. And he's super dope.
that's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah, man. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of artists coming up, I should say, that put an emphasis on visuals, because the so much of the emphasis tends to be like I got to get content out, right? So they're like
Hmm.
they'll shoot, for the IG or for TikTok or whatever. So when I saw the video, and this is an older song too, right?
Hmm.
How old is this song?
This might be 2 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, so for you to be like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and get in the game. I'm gonna go do it. But I'm gonna jump out and do it right away.
Yeah.
When when I was checking out the video, right, and getting all the stuff ready for the stream, I did pause and I go, oh, wait a minute. If he's just kind of coming up on the map now, right, and he's kind of doing this stuff or whatever, I'm like, oh, he actually got a nice video done. Oh, okay, like it looks good. It looks good. So shout out to you for being intentional. Now, do you feel like because of the work that you did with camera and sound and all that, like, do you tend to be an artist of which you're like, yeah, I really want a lot of this stuff on point?
When it comes to music videos, I have no knowledge on that. So
Okay.
I am one of them people. If it's not my ministry, it is not my ministry. Now, if I have
Hey.
like, I stay in my lane, but I might have an idea, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
well, what about this? And I'll run it by him, and he'll be like, okay, well, okay, I can incorporate that, but no, it's not my lane. I stay in my lane.
Hey, bro. Listen. That is not something everybody knows how to do. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation with a friend earlier today, and she was talking about somebody. She teaches dance, been in dance, choreographed for Nelly, been on tours, went world tour. Like, she's done some stuff, right?
Hmm.
And a person who's never done any of it, let alone anything at that level, was trying to like give her suggestions as to what she should do with some dance or whatever. So I was like,
You
how
gotta
does that
swerve
work?
back in that lane. Yeah, you ain't been here long enough.
Man, that's not even, man, that's not even, hey, you didn't turn your blinker on. It's like, yo, did you just lose the
Yeah,
wheel?
facts.
Like,
That's
you be
straight. That's just straight skirt.
he just you I know what happened. You started wandering in the phone and just got in my lane. That's what it was. That's what
That,
it's.
that, that Siri told you turn right immediately, and you missed your turn. Had to
Nah,
swerve real quick.
that's good. That's good. Is the natural born hater given praise? Yes, I was, Corazon. I I call myself, I'm a natural born hater with love and grace. Right. That's how I always present myself, because I there are things that I almost automatically start challenging, and I don't know, that could be from coaching, that could be from as a choreographer and stuff, like I'm used to like nitpicking things, right? Like, that's just, and
Yeah.
I'm freaking Latino, right? Like, it's in my family. Like, we just nitpicking everything, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But I say with love and grace, because it's like I can be that, but then I can also try to look for the for the good things or
Yeah.
whatever too. So I think it's definitely a balance. So for you, bro, just kind of wrapping up the conversation, and we'll definitely have you on, because I feel like there's more to your story, and I didn't want to get too far, into it, trying to be mindful of your time. But
Sir.
what is, if I could ask you this, what? So okay, so my church, we do a live stream podcast here in the studio, which I produce for them, and when we were talking yesterday, we started talking about how generations kind of have this split, where we have an older generation where they're not really too keen on community, and the fellowship aspect. It's kind of, and it tends to be because the older generation tends to be like, hey, suck it up, get over it, let's go, let's keep moving, right? Like, I don't need somebody to tell me, how are you feeling, how is your gauge
Yeah.
today, right? Like, but then you got the younger generation where, like, they're really big about community, but they're lacking in the discipline. They're lacking in really wanting to know the word and dig into it. So you got the older generation where it's like, no, let's get in, let's really figure this stuff out or whatever. But I'll see you guys when I see you next time, right? It's just like, don't knock on my door, that kind of stuff. So there's this kind of like split where it would be great if they could be working together. In your area, your experience, have you experienced any of that stuff? And if so, what would you say to where you are right now, speaking to somebody around your age? Where would you, or how would you guide them to be like, hey, these are things that I see people in my area or in my age where I feel like they're missing it, and I feel like they could grow in this area. What do you have anything to say on that?
Well, I say honestly, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, balance. I
Yeah,
think it's critical, honestly. So I think it is definitely important for me. I really appreciate getting with other people my age and saints and hanging out and doing something outside of church
yeah,
because it just builds that camaraderie. And
yes,
then also you can also talk about, oh dang, let's break down what Pastor was talking about today. Let's break down this. Let's break down that.
yeah,
And I think when you're trying to pretty much create bridges, you know what I'm saying? Don't put up walls. I think that's
mm,
is destroying the church as it is. Everybody's putting up walls and don't, oh, you can't talk to me, you can't talk to them. I'm like, aren't we all here for the same purpose? We're all here together. We're all here to learn. We're all here to get something from God. We're all
supposed to
here
be,
to hear from the pastor. Supposed to be.
supposed to be.
Why do we feel like we can't hang out outside of church? Or is this a church friendship, or is this a
Yeah,
we're friends? You know what I'm saying? So I
yeah,
think it's all about balance.
yeah. No, that's good. I think, yeah, I would agree with you for sure. I mean, last week, and hopefully I'm not going to go on a rant, but but last week I went on a rant about just church in general and how sometimes people feel like, oh, the church doesn't do enough for me, or they don't really care, they're not really involved, and then I'm like, yeah, well, you come in, you sit down, and then you leave right after the service, right? There's no
You're
connection,
a
there's
pew
no
member.
nothing. What?
Say a pew member.
A pew member. Yeah, 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 yeah. You know, and then you've got others who would feel the same way, but then it's like, wait a minute, you're not even really a part of the church, so how does anybody even know how would anybody know how to serve you? You're never there. Like, you never do anything. And so that just that conversation alone, and what you were talking about, where it's like, hey, you got to know where you are. Now, here's my challenge though to anybody who um, would be honest enough to see someone and go, okay, I can tell they're not really engaged with the church. Um, I think the church should, especially the people that they actually have relationships, or those who are being
Uh-huh.
intentional about relationships. Like, I think it is helpful and beneficial to have somebody or some bodies where that is kind of like their main assignment, right?
Uh-huh.
Where it's like, hey, like, you're the relational person. You're really good at bringing people involved with everything. So when you're noticing somebody is disengaged, like, you ought to go engage them somehow,
Uh-huh.
right? So how would you encourage somebody who maybe they want other people to be a part of something? Maybe they want people to feel, accepted in the church, and not accepted as in sin and everything. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But to be accepted, to feel like, hey, I could be a part of this, because it's different with different people. Because obviously, if you got the new person, it's just new, and depending on how
Yeah.
their personality is, there's just so much already kind of going against it. So I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about maybe the person who the pew member, that they're coming in and out. They're not really they're not really engaged, but they're not so disengaged that they're trying to, like, run away as well. Like, how would you encourage somebody who's like, man, I really have somebody in my life that's like that, and I want to be involved in their life, and I want them to be involved, but I also don't want to be pushy. Like, how would you advise somebody for that?
Well, for me, it's all about connection. People want to know that you care. And
Yeah.
if you're going in church and no one's talking to you, no one's doing anything, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be hard for them to want to get involved and want to do stuff because it's like, dang, like when I come in here, the usher don't say nothing to me, don't nobody talk to me, don't nobody want to. It's about connection. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They say leadership is literally a hands-on thing. It's not just I am the leader. You got to get down there. You got to talk. You got to go connect with people. You have to let them know you care about them. You do that, and then I guarantee you that they'll come back around and they'll be more involved because they know you care about
Mm. Mm. Leadership is a hands-on thing. Yeah, bro. Oof. Yo, that's good. That's good. Oh man, same person I was having a conversation with earlier. I was saying, hey, there's a difference between a leader and someone who's just controlling or whatever. Then that was a different context as
them.
far as what we were talking about. But there's a difference between somebody who is leading in the sense of like, I'm actually in front of this path that we're going, and therefore I want to make sure that I'm figuring out, like let's say an analogy of like we're going through the woods, right? We're going through a trail. I want to lead because I want to make sure that I'm looking for the best possible path. If something's wrong, I want to be able to see it first, so that way everyone that I'm leading won't
Mhm,
have this issue, right? But then you'll have some people who they see themselves as a leader. So that would be the hands-on leader, right? Where they're
mhm,
really involved. They would see themselves as a leader, but it's like they're leading as long as you come to them and you sit
mm,
in their office and you go on their time on everything. Like there's no inconvenience, of
mhm,
it. I So part of my testimony, and I shared it yesterday at not yesterday. What's today? Monday. Yeah. So on Saturday at the festival, as I was sharing my testimony, part of my testimony is that I was a kid who, because of my parents working a whole lot, I had to get picked up for rides for everything, sports, everything. Like there's
mhm,
just I was that kid who always needed to ride for everything. Long story short, after being invited to church, being in there, the family that was taking me, they were moving to a different state, and then they told me, hey, no matter what, every single Sunday, stand outside. There's going to be a car there to pick you up. And sure enough, there's 3 different cars that would be rotated, 3 different families, whatever. And my challenge to everybody, there, and I would say even here as well, is what Chazz just talked about being hands-on leadership. Hands-on leadership takes inconvenience. If you are not willing to
mhm,
be inconvenienced to love somebody and serve somebody, you really don't want to disciple anybody. But that's what Jesus calls us to. So if you're not at a point where you are equipped or you feel equipped enough, or whatever the case may be, that's fine. Okay, all of that is fine. But regardless, the Great Commission, we are still called to make disciples, to go into the
mhm,
world and make disciples, right? Teaching them to obey, right, the word. And it's like, for me personally, I only learned how to do that stuff because, again, I didn't know anything about Jesus beforehand, right? I only learned how to do that because people were inconveniencing themselves to drive out of their way
mhm,
to pick me up, to not just take me to church, right? Because that could still be a pretty convenient. Because like, oh, well, we got to
mhm.
go, so we'll take you.
It'll take
No,
you
no, no.
anywhere.
We gonna go out to eat. Hey, you know what? We're gonna pay for your meal too. You gonna come with us? Hey, we're about to go do this event. You're gonna come with us too. Come on over, right? Like they inconvenienced themselves. Therefore, they led me in a hands-on way, like you were talking about,
Mhm,
versus sitting there and going, "Oh, I didn't see you at church. Oh, I would love to help
mhm.
you out, but I just, I don't see you." It's like, well, yeah, homie, because I can't
Yeah.
drive. Like, so
Uh, you
yeah,
gotta remember Jesus was hands on.
yep.
He was down there with the people. He wasn't preaching up on the hill, not touching people. He was down there with the people.
Mm, amen.
He wasn't some mythical creature that you couldn't touch or be around. He was down there with them. So people got to
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what drew people to him too. Like, yeah, there's
Mhm,
there's other aspects or whatever, but like, let's be real. You anybody who's like buzzing and all that, like, that's gonna fade if that's all it is. But like,
mhm.
when you hearing about somebody and then you see them walking in town and you're like, oh, wait a minute, is that the
Hey,
dude y'all talk
that's
about
that's homeboy that you was talking about last week.
healing and feeding? Oh, he don't have this like palace and the security
Mhm.
guards that I got to get through, and
Bodyguards walking through.
right, like, yeah, when you become not only relatable but accessible. There we go.
Mhm,
When you become accessible to somebody, you have more of an impact than you ever could. I mean, look, there are d- plenty of people, okay? There's plenty of people, but there are people who are using social media to gain this platform, but then they're not accessible. Like they get to a point where, and I get it, it's hard to read every DM. You get a lot of
Mhm.
weird people. Okay, people are weird. I get it. Okay, but it becomes so hard to access somebody that it's like you can't really truly make an impact in my life because you're not accessible. Which is why you can't really have a pastor, or say you've got a pastor and you only watch them online and you only look at their
Mhm.
podcast and listen to their podcast or whatever. That's not your pastor, homie. That's just your motivational speaker. Like they could be talking about some great stuff, but somebody who's accessible and inconvenience themselves and has that hands-on leadership, they're
Mhm.
able to do life with you and call you out, right? To pick you up, kind of like what you were
Mhm.
talking about with your testimony, earlier in your years, where your dad would, bring you to things and then correct and help you along, and like that could only
Mhm.
happen because, as you said, he was in the middle of everything, right? We have to be in the
Mhm.
middle of it. And here's what I'm not saying, because I don't want somebody to take that. I am not saying you have to be in the middle of a strip club to try to help your brother
Yeah.
out of the club. That is
Yeah.
a horrible thing that somebody could twist, and I feel like somebody could twist it. When we're talking about being in the middle of it, it just means, again, being accessible. Uh, you know, maybe for whatever that situation, maybe they are struggling going to strip clubs, whatever. You don't go in there, but you and some other people for accountability are sitting outside the parking lot, and it's like, hey, homie,
Mhm.
you said you didn't want to do this no more. Like, we here. Like, here's your option, right? God gives us a
We
ways
done.
out, bro. God gives us ways out, but we don't take them, and then we be looking like, God, why are
God,
you
why you
letting
ain't
this
save me?
like yeah, man.
It's
Oh
like
man.
I sent 3 boats when you was drowning, and you ain't jump on not one of them.
it's,
It ain't my fault, big dog.
it's
It's not my fault.
But Lord, you know what I really want. I wanted the yachts,
You know
okay?
my heart.
Oh, bro. Oh my God. When people are like, the Lord knows your heart. Yeah, and he knows that it's wicked. Okay?
Mhm.
Yes, he knows your desires. And he
Mhm.
knows how selfish those desires can be, right? People try to be like, oh yeah, he just knows your heart. He knows your heart. And so he's gonna respond to you the way that, it's like he could.
That's what people say when they don't want to get up and go to church. "Oh, God knows my heart. I'm gonna go back to sleep. He knows I want to be there. He knows it. I know he knows.
Oh man, he knows it. He knows.
He knows it. He knows it.
Just be curling up. Lord, you know I love you. You know what it
You know
is.
I love you. That's how you get that when you make that turn. You turn to the other side.
Yeah. Oh man, no, that's good, bro. That's good. Well, hey man, I don't want to hold you. Man, I appreciate your time on here. I
Thank you.
love getting a chance to hear your heart too, man. It's been really dope.
I appreciate. I thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I actually do watch these, so
Oh, dope.
I appreciate the platform and I appreciate everything that you do. And man, keep doing you, man, because I love these. I tune in all the time.
Oh man, that means a lot. Seriously, thank you. That really does, man. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, man. And it's like I said, even off stream, I love getting a chance to meet people. Right? To actually, this
Hmm.
is for everybody watching. It's not like Chazz and I go way back. Okay, like
Hmm.
this is first time, and so I love being able to have these kind of interviews too, where I don't know somebody and I get a chance to know them and their heart, and it's always after towards the end of the stream that I'm like, now I know why Nisha, because she's our Twitch coordinator, she's the one that books all the
Hmm.
artists. I'm like, now I know why she brought him on, because
I,
it's
I freaking love her. She is amazing.
oh yeah, yeah,
Ama-
absolutely. No, absolutely, yeah, yeah, and shout out, yeah,
she tried to get me with the keep pounding. Don't talk about my Panthers, man. We took another L Sunday. I don't wanna can't talk about it, man. I need some therapy.
he's
We're gonna
oh
get it
man,
together though.
yeah, yeah, that's funny. Well, hey, bro. Again, yeah, thank you so much, man. Of course, everybody in the
Yes,
chat,
sir.
you guys have been seeing all the links. Make sure you guys are following Chazz on all platforms, checking out the music. And as you guys already know, when it comes to supporting, we don't just support by clicks, but we support by them dollars. Okay, purchase some stuff. You got any merch or anything, bro?
No, I don't. I don't. Just
Okay,
music.
got you. In the future, is there a thought to it?
Hey, if God want to move, he can move.
God knows my heart. He knows my wallet.
He know my situation right now.
uh, I love that too because it goes back to what you were saying earlier about because now I have some context to you. It's like, oh, he stays in his lane. So if merch is not his lane, he's not really thinking that hard about it. Like,
If the Lord want to send somebody who can help a brother,
there it
I'll
is.
let the Lord move.
There it is. There it is. Anybody interested in helping some artists and doing that? Chazz says, "Hey, come on with it. I sign
Hey,
up. I sign
we
up. I
here.
ain't do nothing with it, but
We here.
I say yay or nay, and you get a cut. I get a cut. We all good. Just
Hey, we all go home happy.
that's it. That's it. All right, bro. Well, hey, I won't hold you, man. Thank you again, and yeah,
Sir.
till next time, bro.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Hey, if you liked any of this content and you found some value in it, make sure that you like, subscribe, and of course, share it. Also, if you're interested in some more, go ahead and check out these videos. Till next time, grace and peace. Adios.